All right. Yes. We are back for another open court discussion live in the Counselor's Corner. I am your host, David Lorenzo Glover, aka the Controversial Counselor. Joining me as my co-host, the Big Bad Wolf, Herb Lewis. All right, growling. One of those subject matters. One of those subject matters. Uh, Tonight, Monday, May 18th, 9 p.m., we will be covering the topic full time parent, legal stranger, step parenting in 2026. Good evening, everyone. In 2026, there's a parent in millions of American homes who tuck kids in, sign permission slips, pays for braces, and shows up to every game, who the law says is a legal stranger. That's the step parent paradox. Blended families are no longer the exception, they're the norm. By age 18, over half of kids will live in one, but the rules haven't caught up to reality, and that's where the controversy starts. For example, in Texas this year, the court made it harder for step parents to get custody or visitation. If a biological parent was in the picture, even barely, the step parents' years of 5 a.m. lunches or ER runs suddenly don't count. The law calls it shared care, not exclusive care. Translation: do all the work, get none of the rights. Yet family courts are also carving out the opposite. Just gave a stepdad parenting time over the bio mom's objection because he formed a settled intention to treat the child as his own. Missouri gave a stepfather sole custody. So which is it? Legal stranger or real parent? Even when you're the one, even you're the one the kid calls at 2 a.m. Research this year says ambiguity is killing step families. Nobody knows who's allowed it to discipline, who decides screen time, who the kid should listen to, and ambiguity breeds resentment in the X factor. That's the landline nobody briefed you on. So, what is the role of the step parent in 2026? Let's talk about it. Please like and share our video, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor. Whew, that was a lot said to a serious subject matter, to some things people may not think about when they sign up for that role. You know, when you initially go into the role, you checking out mom dupes or you checking out the uh, the dad, and you really not focused on the other entities or part of their life, and all of this stuff comes into play, and sometimes it doesn't end well. But before we get deep into that, do I got any housekeeping other than just like it is there? It was a scorcher today. It's a scorcher. Behaviors are starting to escalate in the schoolhouse. They got about 3 weeks left. My eighth graders, they probably got less than 3 weeks, and it's just gonna be a battle. It's gonna be a battle, and the one thing they still don't understand, and that's how times have changed to this modern day. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I know when it would get to the last 2 3 weeks, that was the one clutch you could hold over a kid. Like, yep, uh, you don't get your act together, you won't participate in the farewell ceremony, you won't do any of that, and that would kind of get keep them on the straight and narrow. But ever since COVID, school systems really haven't been retaining kids, and so now you have nothing to hold them to, especially in middle school. When high school, you got the standards, they got a time frame, which I think is still, yeah, you know, you got pretty much 7 years to complete high school. Uh, so that's a lot of time to get 22 and a half credit hours. But middle school, as one kid did say, he said, pretty much said, there's no really point of the farewell ceremony and all that. He said, this it's not an accomplishment, where his parent was trying to say it's an accomplishment, don't you want to walk across the stage? He pretty much said, which he wasn't lying, he said, whether you walk across or not, you can't stay in the middle, you can't stay in middle school forever. You got to go on. So that's why, in a sense, we always, I know I do, when they say it's, oh, graduation, you don't graduate from middle school. Slow down, people. Slow down, people. Because essentially, like the kid said, everybody gets out of middle school. You have no choice. You can't repeat um, more than once. It's not like you can repeat twice, because then it becomes a thing of you're 15, maybe going on 16, starting off high school. That's a no no. Uh, really, in both ways. 15 in middle school, that ain't a good look when you're in there with 10 and 11-year olds. So it becomes an age thing. So that's my spiel. We always touch on that. And that's why always one of my key components to cocktail conversations, education. So um, that's my little housekeeping thing, that these kids got to tighten up. Adults got to tighten up at work. I know when it's hot and scorching, you don't want to go to work. You don't want to do nothing. We got to still live. We got to still grind out here, no matter what it is.
Yeah, and to follow that up in an apology beforehand. I'm Game 7 hockey fan, Sabre fan, so if I'm a little distracted, that's why. But to follow up what David said, I remember seventh grade. Oh, yeah, seventh grade. I had rejected the notion of going to summer school for two subjects. And I remember my homeboy, Russell Soul, Shorty, we were having to share the same homeroom. He said, "What you doing in here?" I said, "Man, this is my homeroom." He said, "No, it ain't. You supposed to be in the eighth grade." I said, "Nah." He thought I was joking. Bell rung. I sat down and he was floored. He said, "What the hell?" I said, "Man, I wasn't thinking about summer school." I said, no way." Now, mind you, just as David said, I'm in there with people. All right, that's one goal. 2-1. Um, and I remember, getting to ninth grade, and I was 16, and a situation happened that I won't recap, and I end up getting suspended. This is probably sometime in the between the 10 and 20 week market period, and I really was off and on going to school, and I just got to the point where I just didn't go because I thought I'd been done wrong. I had no real recourse, nobody to advocate for me. I was suspended. I said, if this is what school and education, et cetera, is supposed to be, I don't need it. But I did end up going back, as most of you know, and I did end up getting my diploma. But we would be surprised at the intellect a lot of these kids possess, and sometimes we write them off as, "Oh, when you're a kid, what do you know?" And sometimes, as adults, those of us who are tasked with educating and stewardship of these kids, sometimes we need to sit back and just listen. And the adage kids say the darndest things. Kids know a lot more than than they let on. So, just like David said, some of the problems that they have in middle school are eerily similar to that of what adults are enduring. So, don't write the youth off as if they're young, they don't know nothing. Yes, they have a lot of growing to do. Some of them will have a lot more maturing to do. But when it comes to sentient thought, some of them are right there with you and I. So, don't discredit them. And I'm not saying you have to allow their voice to be the voice of reason. But another opinion from a different perspective never hurts.
right. So you're right. Like Herb said, you got Game Seven of the Sabres in Montreal. You got Game One of the Western Conference Final. So you know when you're a sports addict, that sometimes that's what drives your day. I know it's many days I'll be at work and I'm like, I can't wait to the game tonight. I can't wait, and that just gets me through it because I can sit back and get caught up in other people's competitive fire without being a part of it. Because when you're a part of it, that's stress. That's
Yes.
stress. But when you sit back just watching and enjoying it, you're like, man, then you wish you were in their shoes to be a part of it. Talking about what you would have did or whatever the case is, but it's all good. To me, it keeps you young, it keeps you energetic, keeps you living. But to get on, we can go on the sports all the time, whatever. And that's the
Man,
one.
can we?
It's the one thing my brother always say, man. Why don't you? You should have a sports talk show. You should do this or do that. And I'm like,
There's enough,
it's enough of the people
especially
out there.
with players coming on board,
Yeah,
and the one thing I do like with former players doing sports podcasts is they give us an intimate look into the game and into the locker room that we would never ever be able to get anywhere or otherwise. So for me, that's always going to be intriguing because I happen to meet a former NHL player in my hotel, of course, and I asked him. I said, "What is it like being on the ice?" And he said, "It's tough." He said, "It's tough. It's physical, and you know, it's a strenuous process because you think, you know, um, Major League Baseball, 162 games, NBA, I believe 82. The NHL is 82. Football is the only league that doesn't have that many games, but the physicality is definitely up there. So I can only relate, and I'm sure David has his own stories about you know the grind and the practice. And it's like Ray Lewis said, when he was being interviewed, he said Sunday, he said Monday through Saturday is what they pay us for. Sundays you get for free. He said because that's the game, going out there and playing and performing, man. That's it reminds me of being in a theater. All the rehearsals, all the going over the lines, the practices. That's the hard work. Getting on stage, being in front of a few hundred people, that's the fun. That's when you get to say, you know what? We took all this time, we put all this effort in, and this is the finished product. A lot of people would be surprised at how much work, time, and effort goes into a lot of things, and you only see the finished product. And people say, well, and David, you always say this. Oh well, I can do that. That's easy. And people trying to copy what you did with podcasting, and what do? They flame it out. So it's tough.
when you said about sports, it reminds me. I always got to throw a little boxing thing with. To me, the current, well, he retired, Bud Crawford. He 38 years old. A lot of people caught on to him when he was older. Uh,
Microphone.
I said, it reminds me of boxing with Bud Crawford. I said he kind of people caught on to him at his latter years, but I had scoped him out a long time ago, and I was like, yo, this is the real deal. To the point when I seen him in Vegas, uh, seeing him walking through, and I said, Bud Crawford about to take over the game when when Money Mayweather retired. He sort of like smiled, whatever. I said, "Come on, man, let's get this pick." And so because he wasn't that known at that time, and we took a couple pictures together. And but now as he got older, he said, like right now, he retired, but they're trying to lure him out. Oh, we give you 100 million, we give you 150 million, and he is like, he's done well with his money. He's like a simple type of guy from Omaha, Nebraska. He also has the opportunity to build with Warren Buffett, who lives
Hmm.
in Omaha, Nebraska. So he has conversation. Actually, Warren Buffett came to several of his fights, and so he's learning how to manage his money. Bought property, pretty much bought up the whole neighborhood, a whole block houses on one street where he grew up on. So he's manages money, but they still want him to come out because people didn't get enough of him. So they want him to come out. But he was like, it's the grind of the training camp before boxing. He's like, it takes its toll. He said, fight night, shit, I get in there and fight. I'm gonna, pretty much whoop somebody ass that night. But he said to go through that 8 week process and kind of it's not on that level, but I think I shared this a few weeks ago that when I ran into one of the guys I used to hoop with on Sundays, because I hadn't played in a couple of years, and obviously he hadn't played, and he was like, he was done. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm done. I said, I'm retired. I said, after, because he said he stopped playing because of the recovery time. He said, we
Okay.
play on Sunday. I couldn't get back right until Wednesday. He said, I just couldn't do it no more. And I felt the same way. I'd be walking around, could barely move at work, and had plantar fasciitis, bruised toes, and I was like, it's just not worth it anymore. But if it out there when you playing, feels good to play with, especially guys your age. You out there, you're hooping, you're balling, and showing a little physicality, and you come on, you're like, man, that was a hell of a workout. But
Yeah.
after a little bit, once you settle in and get up, it's done. You sore, you because you're using parts of the bodies that you never use, jumping around, lateral movements, rolling of the ankles and bending and doing all that stuff. So basketball is physical. So it took its toll. So, I understand when people have to walk away. Just like sometimes in the subject tonight with step parents. Sometimes you put in the work because step parenting is a marathon. It's a journey. And you go through a lot to get to the point, probably with that child, that they recognize you as like, yo, this my dad, this my mom, this is the one who been there. Like I said in the intro, the 5 a.m., the making lunches or the ER runs, helping paying for braces and all that stuff. But that's not how society views it, and that's not how they look at it. Um, and it was interesting. We used to have a little broadcaster show about the graduation tickets. Now we around that time, graduation time, and a lot of people. It was a scenario I put out there that stepdad was there ever since she was 3, paying for everything, doing this, doing that. I'm assuming dropping her off at events. Paying the money along with the mom. Then it would have when it came down to, because you only could get a certain amount of tickets. Somehow the dad reached out. Oh, she about to graduate. Maybe one of the aunts or some said, "You better reach out to your daughter. You know she's graduating." And he decides to reach out. She only got 4 or 5 tickets. She decides to give it to her biological dad instead of the stepdad. Now, to me, he was tight behind it. And a lot of people, women that was on the panel at that time, were like, well, it should have been her choice, whatever. That's her dad. Maybe she wanted to make a bond with him. And I'm like, I think the mother should have been played a more part of giving her a different rationale. Like, I understand what you're saying. You want your dad to come, but his ass can come to the cookout or whatever. But my husband, your dad who's been in your life, he's getting that ticket. I don't think you leave that into the decision of a 17-year-old, 18-year-old. So, but that was just the unfortunate thing that the stepdad went through all of that, but couldn't see her shine. Now, what he had to do is get the coal warmed up and the grill warmed up for everybody to come over, and the biological got the opportunity to see her walk across the stage, the sunset while he was putting in labor at the house, getting everything ready. I call that bullshit.
it, there's no right or wrong. We want people to understand this out of the gate. Um, we were introduced to, if I'm gonna misuse the word introduce, if you will, but mainstream speaking, we were introduced to blended families with the Brady Bunch. I kind of show for us Gen Xers, and the issues they had were never with parenting. It was never with who earned what or who should be there. I think ideally that would be the template for how blended families should work. I said should work. But the only problem is this: that type of society does not exist. The father, uh, the father was an architecture, earn, support six kids, wife a stay-at-home mom, homemaker. That is the upper level of living that you get in society when you're a top earner. You know, the the 10%ers, if you will. So when you have a parent who might be financially disadvantaged, not necessarily struggling, but she's covering, or he for that matter, they're covering all the basics and a little bit, just a little bit, just enough to keep the kid happy or the kid's happy. A little bit of the auxiliary so they can go out, they can have fun with their friends, they might be able to take a field trip somewhere. Everything's not too bad. The problem comes in when they find a suitable mate for them. And the kids, because they don't like this individual, they start to run interference. How is that handled? And they don't really run interference because they don't quote unquote like the other person. They do it because they have desires and wishes that their parents will reconcile. Now we all know. I said it earlier. Sometimes we should listen to kids and take their positions and perspectives um into thought. Relationships, unfortunately, is the one thing that they really, really don't have a firm grasp of because they've never had them. They don't understand the intricacies behind closed doors, which, if most parents, whether they're married or not, keep these things from kids, the kids become unaware. And that's how, in my opinion, and in my estimation, that's how a family should run. Kids should not know about the financial struggles of the family. Kids should not know about one parent's issues with infidelity. That's not kid stuff. That's adult, parent, peer to peer things that need to be kept between those two. So when some of those things start to leak out and the kids start to ask questions, as opposed to redirecting them, saying, "Look, that's between you and that's between your father and me. We will deal with that. And if something happens, we will call a family meeting. We will sit down and we will let you know what's going on. But unfortunately, you do not get to partake in that aspect of the family." Some people say I'm contradicting myself. Now, kids are supposed to be carefree. They're supposed to enjoy their childhood. Think about it in this terms. Your childhood is the shortest lived existence in your life. You can be a toddler for 2 or 3 years. You can be a kid from the age of 4 to the age of 10, 11. You can be a teen for 7, 8, 9 years. You might be in college for 4 or 5 years, 6 years. You're going to be an adult for at least 60 years. There's no need for adults to burden children with adult issues. They'll have time enough to do that themselves. Let them be them. Let them go off and run around and do whatever the kids in this generation or past generations have done. To me, that's the best. But we know that's ideal. We know a lot of parents aren't going to do that. Why? Because some parents actually want to use the kids as leverage. And we see it all the time. We hear about it in divorces, even though the divorces might be of that of celebrities. That doesn't change whether you're well-to-do or on the um sorry lower rung of the economic scale. Those issues are real. The feelings, they're real, and how it plays out can have long-term ramifications beyond anything that we think about now. This is why we talk about as one of our core components, you know, the mental health of children, because that gets glossed over. Think about how often does a parent actually introduce slowly a new mate. You got some women that say, under no conditions will a guy that I'm meeting meet my children. Surface, I understand. You don't want your kids, quote unquote, to get attached, or you don't know this guy well enough. Your kids aren't old enough. I understand all of that. But if it happens to work out to where you and your mate, and whether it's a I'm sorry, mother picking up another mate or the father picking up another mate, the problem's not the same. You have to find out a way to introduce this individual to your children. So your mate, not the kids, but your mate gets a fair opportunity at establishing a bond between those two. Because if the relationship progresses to the point where you guys start talking about marriage, that's going to happen. And the last thing that you want is your mate to come in and be hamstrung when it comes to discipline, when it comes to helping you out, when it comes to just everything around the house. So when he or she says something to the child, they don't run behind you and say, "You ain't my daddy, you ain't my mama, I ain't got to listen to you." Because the first thing you should be there, right there, doing is say, "Hey, look, look, look." No, that individual is my husband. She's my wife. You're going to respect her as you would if she were your biological mother. I will not have tell of that in this house. And that's got to be the precedent from the moment that the two adults decide that they're going to have a blended family. Now, the other thing is you can sit down and discuss. And this, and in my opinion, you want to bring your child along so your child understands the steps that may come with that. When that child gets to be in 10th grade, 11th grade, you can say, "Hey, look, you could be graduating. You're going to be graduating high school next year. We already know you're allotted 4 tickets. Who would you like to see go with those tickets?" And you bring them into the discussion in that manner, so they don't feel like they didn't have a choice. And then you sit down with your significant other and says, "Hey, babe, I appreciate everything you've done. How you've taken my child in or my children in. You've never complained one time when having to pay this or having to do this or having to defer. I'm not going to ask you to do anything. I'm going to say this is what he or she wants. How comfortable are you with that?" And I think if we have those decisions more, the couples have those decisions more.
Let me answer that for you.
Yeah,
Get the fuck out of here.
okay, that's fine. But that's the conversation that has to be
I
had.
know. I understand what you said. I'm just listening to you how you try to build it up as he's listening to it and like, Oh, here come the bullshit that she about to invite this motherfucker who been in jail, who been dormant, hibernating all of a sudden. Oh hell no. And you know what? It probably could you could probably could get away with it, but again, we always talk about the influence of social media when
Yeah.
you see pictures and all that, and then his family members like, oh, um, Tashika. I'm not even gonna come with one of them names. Allison or whatever. She graduated. We noticed on social media. Where was you at? I didn't see you in any of the pictures. And who was that guy that was there with Pam, whatever, your wife or whatever? And now you like, damn, I got to answer to them. And so I think a lot of times people don't feel comfortable because they feel like they got to answers to others because everybody's in your business once you post pictures and stuff where it would be simple as you had an event. And back in the days, you get Polaroid pictures or whatever the case
Yeah.
is, and that would be that. But now people strolling through and they clicking and they enlarging the thing. Well, I don't see him in none of the pictures. Where was he at? He was taking it. Well, you would think that he would have been in one of the pictures with her, since he helped raise her. Shit, she practically ours. She been around, and we didn't kept her. But then go to the thing. It's like disheartening, and it's like your pride. It's like it hits hard. It probably would hit hard, and just basically with all the questions and the text messages and all that, because people ain't gonna let off for whatever reason. They not gonna say, well, um, they probably decided that the dad come in, and it's okay, whatever. Nah, they gonna try to light the fire, whatever, stir the pot. So I think a lot of people, that's where these emotions come in.
Now,
Sorry, I took over that segment, but I just had to
no,
jump
no,
in.
no, no. That's a very good interruption because I'm gonna offer a counter to that.
Mm,
Now, let's say you get a partner, a mate that's willing to say, okay, you know what? I'll make you a deal. If she gets married, I get to walk her down the aisle. Now, this is where you teach your child compromise. You say, okay, he's willing to forego that place in lieu of you giving a ticket to your biological father. But here's the catch: if you get married, he walks you down the aisle. No ifs, ands, or buts, no questions. Just your biological father can attend the ceremony, but he's gonna walk you down. He's gonna give you away. And I think people don't use these types of things and think long term and use leverage, and you get the child into real adult decision making. And you say, hey, look, there are no winners and losers in life. There's only trade offs. So you get this now, and you give them something later, and you hold them to that. Even if you got to remind them every so often, especially if they get in a relationship and they go away to college, say, hey, look, if you get married, such and such is walking you down the aisle. Remember, you agreed to this. And people say that's unfair. No. Like I said, in life there's trade-offs. There's no fair or foul. You if a promotion comes along, a job promotion comes along, and it's the job of your dreams, but the only problem is you got to relocate. Do you say that's unfair? You say no. You sit down with whomever it is that you might be dating at the time, or whatever it is, and say, hey, look, this is the case. I got a job that's going to pay me $15,000 a year more, but I just got to relocate. We see it all the time, and we've talked about it. Would you relocate for love? What's the difference? But people don't think these are realistic scenarios. They don't think they're worthy of discussions. They will say that'll never happen. Well, hell, if it never happens, then you don't have anything to worry about because you planned accordingly. However, If it does come to pass and you didn't plan appropriately, you got a problem. All because you didn't think it would happen. We call them contingencies. Okay, so what are we going to do if one of us can't pick up our child from school? Who's going to be that person that we put on the paper that the school acknowledges we deem a safe person to have the child picked up with? Contingency. It's, every business has one. Everybody that has something worth protecting, you do it. And it can work with college too. Actually, we don't even have to go as far as a wedding. We can do college and say, hey, look, he's paying for your college. You understand that? So you go there and you get good grades. Ain't none of this hanging out too much. Ain't none of this partying too much. Ain't none of this skipping classes. He's paying for your education. $60,000 a year coming out of his pocket. You understand that? So when you get to graduation from college, there's no discussion. He's coming. Either or. But we actually have to sit down and have these discussions. We actually have to sit down and consider the ramifications and the possibilities. And this is something that squarely should fall in the adults' laps on their plate from the moment that they start commingling funds and moving in together with the prospect of that child. We're not going. There's another wrinkle that's coming behind us that we'll get to later, but that's definitely the adults. You got to lead that discussion. You got to lead that discussion.
Well, when we go into this, when I originally the title of the thing was show of full time parent, legal stranger. So when you think about the legal matters of it, and I'm going through looking at my notes, um, and one of the things is that legal standing is shrinking and not growing. And we talked about the Texas rule that it makes it harder for step parents to get custody or visitation. So imagine if you're a stepdad and you've been in part of this life and something happens and y'all split, but that child has been like yours. That's all you know. That's all she or he knows. But all of a sudden now, you can't really see them no more. You have no rights. So if a biological parent was present in parenting, courts rarely see the step parent role as an exclusive role and control. Most step parents who help raise a child will no longer qualify for non-parenting standing. So all that you put out into it, and no matter what, if Melvin surface, he gets all the rights. He ain't have to pay shit. He ain't have to do anything. You put your money into it. Now I'm pretty sure grandma or somebody said, you sure you want to get into that? It's a lot behind that. I know you love her, she and all that, but she got a lot of baggage. She got a lot, none of them yours. You sure you can't find nobody else out there? And you like, it's not about that. But somehow, some way, somebody words said is gonna come back to you. But let me finish with that. And is the law biased? Texas law presumes a fit parent has superior rights to custody over any non-parent, included devoted step parents. Courts won't even consider best interest of the child unless standing is established first. So it's tough out there. Like you get nothing. They're not even gonna consider the work you put in. That's that's like one of my old jokes. Shout out to Hoink. The ongoing joke he used to always say, like in football, you work yourself all the way down the field, get to the 1 or 2 yard line, and they give it to somebody else to take it in for the touchdown. That's what the equivalent is. He used to make that joke like, man, you had like 98 yards, such and such, running up and down the field. Then somebody else come in and they give them the
Does
ball.
now.
Same thing they did with refrigerator Perry and all that with the
Yeah,
Chicago. Like
yep,
it hurts.
yeah.
It hurts. So, and let me just finish with this. So Superior Court backcourt. I guess it was Troxel versus Granfield gives biological parents constitutional priority. Um, a step parent has no rights if the bio parent objects. So these are things that you have to think about, like, and I don't know, and it seems like it's state by state. It's like a state thing, and I think that's the issue because too many things are based on state. When some of this stuff, it's not about the state. It's about mankind, humankind, feelings, um, devotion, stuff that you put out, like that shouldn't be governed like state by state. It should be like a general rule. And like I mentioned before, but courts are carving out exceptions. So when you talked about that some step parents have been given rights. But let's switch the mode to the social script problem. Social scripts tell us that step parents are not real parents, even if they do all the things a biological parent would. Step parents are overlooked legally and socially, leaving them and the kids vulnerable. If the romance ends, family law courts will treat step parents as interlopers with no obligations to support stepchildren during marriage and no rights after divorce. So, like, these are some of the things that you have to think about. Like, if it don't end, and I know Herb said, "Oh, let's cut a deal." When you get, if she get married, you get to walk her down. Is that guaranteed? will that will that hold? Is that cap? That okay? Like, because some guy might be thinking, like, get the fuck out of here. I don't even think I'm gonna be with your ass this long. That already might be lingering in his head, like we ain't gonna make it that long. Or do you have someone? Okay, that sounds like a fair deal. All right, I'll do that. Yeah. Now I got my confidence back. When she gets married, I'm gonna be the one to walk down. Dude, you might have to give a little resistance because it may not be guaranteed. Now I'm here to ruffle a little feathers, so the guy that's compliant may fall for it, but somebody thinking forward, like I already know this issue right here caused a lot of strain and shit. I'm the big dog holding things down here. No, I'm not buying that. So somebody may object to it. It depends on the individual. It depends on, I guess, his backbone, his spine, and how he feels. Like I'm not about to let so, somebody take advantage of me in this situation. Which a lot of times in these situations, people end up being vulnerable because you think about the kids and you think about the role you've been playing, and you say to myself, I don't want to do them this way. I don't want to do this way. But I always go back to, a situation. Never mind. Well, I'll bypass that. We'll move on. Big Bad Wolf, you got anything you want to say?
No, and you know what? Like David said, this is in Texas, and for all the talk that I do about being politically involved, what I would urge people to do, especially those who are vested in this kind of stuff, is start talking to your locally elected House of Representatives and your congressional people. And this type of legislation is peripheral. Nobody cares about it because it doesn't, quote unquote, change anything from day to day. That would be false. It changes things day to day for those people who it touches. Like David said, blended families, they're growing. It may not be an issue in 2026, but in 2046, it may be a hot button topic because you have less people that are getting married, people continuing to have kids, but you're going to have a segment of society who wants to date, who doesn't mind taking on children from another uh, male or female. They're gonna say, you know what? I was raised that I have enough to give. I should share, and that's all you need. And that population is going to grow. To think it's going to shrink is foolish. And it's always better to get ahead and out in front of a potential legal problem than to wait for it to get to the point where there is no legal way to address the problem. Because like I said, I know it's not a huge problem now. You know, 1 out of every 10 people may be affected. People say that's 10% problem. We don't have to worry about that. And the numbers grow. You got 55%. It's disenchanted. They want some recourse. The only problem is the recourse they have has already been either codified through the state level or they're relying on some federal uh, laws that are antiquated because they don't address what the problems are. So the only way you can redress your government is by start to let your local elected officials know, hey, look, this is a problem in our community because we're a community of blended families. Every time a woman goes to the court, she wants to get at least visitation. She's not asking for custody. She's just asking for visitation. Once every 2 weeks, she gets to take the kid out to a movie. She get to take the kid out to an amusement park. Or hey, better yet, this parent has the means. They want to take this kid overseas to a trip, and everybody's on paper. Everybody's in agreement that hey, it's a great opportunity. But the paperwork holds up the process. And we see that all the time. The only thing is, we're here with illegal immigration. Well, we're here with either legal immigration or illegal immigration? I said, well, what's the holdup? We're just waiting for the paperwork to clear. Well, it shouldn't take that long for paperwork to clear for something that everybody's in agreement with. That's absurd. But here we are. Why? Because nobody has ever sat down to think about it and say, okay, look, right now this is not a problem. Let's look at the trends. Let's look at the numbers. Is it trending upwards? Are the numbers moving up? Or is it trending downwards? The numbers are trending. But hey, we may want to start taking this in a more serious light. So that way, when it does become a problem, we have the foundation laid, we have the bills and everything in place. All we need to do is vote on it from a legislative level, even if the states do it. If the states do it, you're halfway there. Because it'll get to a tipping point to where they're going to say, okay, you know what? We've got 20 states that have some type of legislation on the books regarding this. Let's push this to a federal issue. And that's the same thing that happened with abortion, with Roe v. Wade. Enough states got on board to where it was kicked up to the federal level. And this type of stuff can, sorry, okay. And this is the type of stuff that can be eliminated earlier if they're pushed. Because the government's not going to do anything they don't think they have to do. They can say, well, we don't care, it's not a problem with us. Nah, we in the 1%. Let them worry about that down
Let me jump in on this. And it's always a connection to everything, and I think about even my journey of becoming a school counselor. When I had interviews, uh, I got hired by one school district, but I didn't take it. But they told me that they were kind of looking for someone to, and they needed someone in a position to deal with. It was a lot of same sex relationships,
there.
same gender relationships in a certain town. And they were looking for someone to kind of counsel those kids in the school because that environment was growing. They offered me the job. I didn't take it. And it was like based on logistics and where it was at. But then also I had interviews back at home, and they were like, well, with certain school districts, there's like I could tell you now that we're looking for someone to deal with. We have an increase, a growing population, and I'm just going to say this in Amherst that a lot of Section 8 people were moving into that area. So basically, they were saying, not, but this was what they were saying without saying it, uh, because we know not only blacks get Section 8, but it was a lot of blacks moving into the Amherst school district, maybe because of certain complexes or apartment complexes, whatever, and they were looking for probably a black counselor or someone to do that. Needless to say, they told me all this ahead of time, but I didn't get it because they probably already had somebody handpicked that worked for the school district or whatever. But so when Herb was talking about politics and things of that nature, th- they really act like they want to, this stuff is really put out there, and they look at certain situations and say, "Hey, we need to address this. We need to put this in the forefront." So I guess they were trying to cover their tracks and that. So like my journey to become a school counselor, I got ran across a lot of different scenarios and situations that I have spoken on here before, but I've been kind of treading water when I spoke on it. Yeah, I don't know. When I get up out of the game, I'm telling it. I keep telling you, I'm
Yes,
telling it all. Oh, they tied it up.
yes.
Hmm. What period is it? Third?
Third period.
Okay. I'm telling it all. But again, so people need to, you got to be mindful of that. And one of the things that we didn't bring on boundaries with exes, the X factor is the most emotionally charged piece. Agree on communication frequently, off limit topics, support disengaging from topic dynamics. That's a whole nother piece when you enter into this situation where, damn, if you're a father, we men, okay, what's the free reign for this dude to come over? Like, okay, is he over here just posted up, chilling? Uh, or he playing games and saying, well, I'm gonna get her, but I don't have no I gotta work and I don't have nobody to watch her, so you gotta come stay at my house. And you like, yo, it's a lot. A lot of this stuff is real. So now you feel like, well, it was his time to have her, and he didn't have no babysitter, so I just went over his house and watched her. Now the husband thinking like, the fuck? Like, where we do that at? But these are things that you have to think about. And I'm not trying to stray you one way or the other, but it's conversation that needs to happen for because oftentimes people jump in these situations and sometimes it didn't things turn sour or don't work out right, or even for the kids that they go through a lot of mental stress over the years because of situations. Trust me, I done heard a lot of stories in my time that they come to me and talk about. And I'm like, oh God. Shit, I know some of these stepdads and stepmoms, and I never met them, but the story that the kid painted, and I'm like, wow, like it's a lot. It's a lot goes on, and it's a lot to this. But some of y'all just think, oh, hey, he with it. He been trying to get with me, and now shit, I don't let him move there. There's more to that that you have to think about.
A lot of people, back to what you were saying about the position you would offer, a lot of people don't realize, that once something starts, it usually doesn't move backwards. In other words, I know when I did the mentoring program, we had a same sex family, two women, and they were having problems with their son, with their son. And one of the problems they had was him acting out and him not, completing his homework, him not going to school. Now, one of the things that I made sure I did was we had a list of people, or students rather, we had a list of students who were playing hooky and things. So what I would do before I went to school, went out to the school rather, was I would actually go by the house in the morning, knock on the door. Is such and such there? Or you got on the bus? Okay. Make sure he's at school. We get the attendance records. These are the type of things that we did with our mentoring program, and unfortunately it was short lived. But what a lot of people don't understand is with blended families, there is no gender barrier. Okay? There is none. So if you have parents who are consenting age and they're of the same gender, they can cohabitate. Now, I personally don't know of any studies that have been done in terms of the effects on children. And that might be something I'll look into, or ask a few people about. But we don't know how that impacts children. We have no idea that if two women show up to graduation, albeit it might be a little too late, that there's going to be whispers or moving up day, because a lot of schools have the, like David was saying, from eighth and ninth grade, two fathers show up, two women showed up. Is our society ready to handle something like that without having a negative impact on the student? Without that student having to deal with being bullied, being talked about, and like David pointed out, social media. These kids are far and away more ruthless than we ever could be, just because they have the anonymity of social media. They can sit back, create profiles, pick up. It's endless. This is, so when people hear blended families, they tend to think male female. They don't think male male, female female. And people will say, well, what business is it of ours or the public if they do that? Well, it would seem as if nothing, until the situation reveals itself in your neighborhood, in your child's school, or somewhere else where it becomes an issue. Like I said, these things, they, school districts, they keep an eye on these things. That's why I can tell you about it. That's why David can speak to about it. But the people at large, they're oblivious to it. They're living their lives as if everything's cool. And next thing you know, you see in the paper, such and such and such and such, and this lawsuit is filed and this lawsuit is filed. People say, well, where the hell does this come from? It's been on the back burner. And now it has generated enough heat, enough attention that it's pushed through to the front page. And you're bewildered by it. And you say, well, it's news to me. Since when did it become an issue?
Yeah. And one of the things is, again, dishonesty, where these blended families, because at one point, shit, your kids got introduced as, because it might be a situation where the person been around for a while, but y'all just never got together. Then something jumped off. But before, he was your uncle. The kids knew him as uncle, but as they got older, you can only you can only that only works for kids when they in this day and age probably probably second grade level. Once they get to third grade and all that, okay, why uncle coming out my fucking mother room? Uh, because these third grade kids, again, I always say this, they don't want to hear it. They're already sending out nudes and stuff, trying to explore each other bodies and stuff like that in third, fourth grade and all that. But they wondering, like, hold on, they connecting the pieces. That's uncle. Then why? Why my uncle sleep with my mother? He stay the night and he creeping out of there. And most of the time, he like, well, Uncle Wayne was here late. And you're like, shut the hell up. You was asleep. You was half asleep, whatever. Brushing it off. But that shit don't leave their mental Rolodex. All they do is gather data after a while. And then when they get older, damn, this makes sense now. I remember, and and they ain't gonna say that y'all was, excuse my language, fucking all that. They may say stuff like they was in there making adult noises or something that now you gotta backpedal. But these kids have resentment
Yeah.
because Wayne, who's supposed to be their uncle, he plowing the mother. Been plowing the mother. Now he your daddy. He went from your uncle to he went from your uncle to your daddy. See the lies that we tell catches up, whatever, and it kind of spirals out of control. Now you don't know what the hell because at one point one of them kids gonna bust in the room, whatever, because they got free will. When they bust in your room and they didn't caught you in a uncompromising position, or y'all in the
And we talked about something
yeah,
similar like this on a prior show when we talked about, does this country encourage you to lie or to not be truthful? See, the funny thing about it is when a lot of these things, a lot of these shows that we come up with, people don't connect the dots. Like you say, everything we do can be connected to something else. This conversation begins and it doesn't end, it just goes in a different direction. And the question becomes, what direction are you willing to sit down and take the conversation in? What direction are you comfortable with taking the direction in? Because a lot of people, they're just not comfortable with certain things. They don't want to talk about gay issues. Oh no, I ain't got nothing to do with that. I ain't got nothing to do with me. That's them folks' business. All of a sudden now, gay marriage is legal in most states. It's protected. But people never thought it would come to pass. Why? Only 2 or 3% of the population is. People, don't bury your head to these kinds of things. Yes, we make light of it because we want it to come up so people are comfortable talking about it. So you don't have to deal with a bunch of us. I don't want to say squeamish. Squeamish is not the right word. So we don't have to deal with a bunch of adults who have a juvenile mindset when it comes to talk about things that have a daily impact and they have ramifications long term. Because if we bring, think about it, if this topic was more of an important topic to the country wide, it would dominate the headlines. And you're not going to find anybody talking about this stuff. Nobody but us. Why? Because people don't care. Oh, that's their problem. I don't have a problem with a blended family. I've been married for 15 years. Next thing you know, you find out Somebody's been unfaithful and you want a divorce. You move on 10 years, you got a teenager. Because we see them pop the balloon. A lot of people don't want to deal with baby mama. A lot of people don't want to deal with baby fathers, and you got some people that do. So what's the first conversation that these two have? They talk. You have some people that talk about relocating, but we rarely hear people talk about parenting styles. Are you hands on? Are you hands off? Do you believe in physical discipline? Do you believe in giving allowances? A religion? It literally it is a buffet of things that two adults, especially if we have kids that are between the ages of 8 to 12, they need to sit down and discuss. And if it comes to discipline, or when it comes to discipline, not if, when, are you actually bringing the kids in there, regardless if the relationship is going to go long term? Because what I've come to realize is a lot of parents don't set the template for what's expected of their kids. They don't set the template until after a situation occurs. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, and I'm not necessarily saying it's a good thing. And before the people out there say, "Well, you don't have any kids, so what do you know? What do you understand?" A lot more than you think I do. Just because I don't doesn't mean I cannot. But it's just like the building. When you have kids, you set a foundation of expectations and behaviors that are you going to tolerate and that will absolutely not be tolerated. And you let them know, hey, if you step outside of this realm, this is going to be waiting for you. So they can't say they didn't know. You eliminate palazzo. You eliminate palazzo. I can't speak right now. Palazzo,
Plausible.
plausible deniability. Yeah, and they can't say, well, they didn't know because you've already given them the right act. First day of kindergarten, you go to that school, you get good grades. What the teacher tells you to do, so long as it don't put you in trouble, you do. If you have a problem with something the teacher says, you do it anyway. And then you come home and tell me. You let me deal with the adult. I don't want you dealing with the adult because you'll get in trouble and they'll start to label you. When I come up there, I'll deal with them. They can't label me because they can't deal with me like I can deal with them. And we have a lot of parents, and I'm sure David can attest to this. When they come to the school, they don't come with the intent to resolve problems. They come with the intent to act like assholes.
Shit. All day, every day.
And guess who
Wow.
guess who the administration takes that out on? Your child when you're not there. So your child does something marginal, go to the principal's office. Your child gets caught up in something that they would ordinarily dismiss, go to the principal's office.
Paper trail. Paper trail.
And that is it. And that is all they want, to label your child as a malcontent, put that child in special needs courses where he or she gets left behind. Now,
It's
if
wild.
you had somebody down there, if you had somebody in your corner who was better suited to handle that situation, in other words, they were more diplomatic, they would go down to the school and they would say, hey, okay, listen, I understand my child, you know, has been misbehaving. Is there a particular reason why he's being or she is being singled out? Because no child in elementary school, no child misbehaves by themselves. Let's put that out there. If there's one, there's at least one other one. So you ask, well, where's the other child that he or she so called bothers? And why isn't the teacher switching seats? Those are the type of questions that a level head person comes down there and asks. They don't go down there to cause any more troubles. They're going down there to get the situation addressed. And I say, hey, look, I don't want to come down here any more than you want to have me down here. We know the child is better off in class learning with his peers or her peers. So can we get this addressed right here, right now? Can we lay out some type of plan to have my child set somewhere else so he or she doesn't bother his classmate? But you got to have a parent who's capable of doing that. And when you have parents, and this is why it's always better to have two parents there. So when you have one parent that goes out there and say, "Well, wait a minute, who are you?" "Oh, I am Brenda's stepfather. Her mother couldn't make it because she's at work. She asked me to come down here and instead." They were ready to deal with Brenda. I'm sorry, they were ready to deal with Brenda's mother. They weren't ready to deal with you. So guess what? They don't have. They don't have a game plan on how to deal with you. Why? Because you didn't come down there rah rah. You came down there kind of cool. You came down there thoughtful, articulate. They say, okay, you know what? At least we know there's one adult in the home that we can talk to that will help us straighten the kid out. And guess what? Sometimes they might do. The teacher might say, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna call your mother. I'm gonna call your stepfather because they know they got some traction with the stepfather. And sometimes, not all the time, sometimes you need a different set of eyes and ears and a mouth to deal with a problem. Because not everybody's going to get the same response out of everyone. There'll be like you. There's a we always include sports. And I'm gonna do this one. Charles Haley had been traded to Dallas, and I can't remember which championship game it was. It was either '92 or '93, and I think it was the one where Dion went to Dallas, and they had to come get him out of Dallas's locker room to go back into the San Francisco locker room to talk to one of his former teammates because he was having a manic depressive episode, and he talked him down. It's the same thing. We all don't respond to everybody the same way, and to think that school is any different, elementary or whatever it is the same, isn't the same way, is foolish. We got to remember that some people are capable of talking and charming anyone at any time, getting what they want verbally. So it helps the child. And if what we do academically is always in the best interest of the child, then that should start at home, especially with a blended family. So you can say, you know what? I never have any success down at the school. They don't listen to me. They always blaming our child. Can you go down there and see if you can do any better? But we got to acknowledge our shortcomings because if we as adults don't acknowledge our shortcomings, how can we teach the child how to deal with theirs? Because not everybody is born. Not everybody is born to elevate to that level where they can handle every situation that's thrown their way. We'd be foolish to think that. Even though I'm equipped to handle just about anything that comes my way, there's probably a situation or two that'll come my way and I'll be like, damn, what the fuck to do? And there are not many situations that I haven't at least been around or have been privy to exposure just by the type of jobs I've done. Somebody, you know, cardiac arrest or any of those things. We don't know.
Yeah, but again, it's so much to this that you have to open your eyes, open your ears to be kind of being transparent to these situations because they come in multiple forms. So you just never know. But again, if something is presented to you and it's a constant thing, there is there's gonna be an issue. So when you think about the blended families and all that stuff, there's gonna be ongoing issues. And again, it's only as good as far as the kids on what they disclose. Hopefully, they have a trusting person that they could talk to, and they could say, "Yeah, this is what's going on. Well, since my mother got with him, things have been different. We used to have movie night. We used to go out, but all of a sudden now we don't do any of this stuff. Like I'm not happy." Yeah. A lot of stuff come out. Then if you dig and you prod, then as these conversations go on, you may realize, yeah, just stepdad. I'm just gonna say stepdad at this situation. He really trying to isolate and shut stuff down. Like he got in this situation and she like, and kids, they gonna, if they trust you, they gonna keep feeding you with information. If you're a trusted individual, they gonna feed you to the point that sometimes you don't want to hear it. Like I did not want this to happen. I had a half day today. It's a Friday. I'm trying to get out of here to get on the road to go out of town. But if you're a trusted adult, they coming. So if something happened the night before or whatever the case, they coming. So I guess I'm saying that to be saying that is so many factors that play a role in step parenting in 2026, where I guess some things, yeah, I don't have the Gen X age, all that stuff, all of the different things, but things have changed with communication. Yeah, if you break it down for years, a lot of times you didn't tell what was going on in the household. You didn't say anything. Like we never like shit. I got paddled in front of the whole. I was a good kid. I got paddled in front of the whole cafeteria one time, and in front of probably I don't know a couple hundred kids. But I was a good student. But because I got caught up in a milk war and threw some milk back because somebody threw some on me, all the parties involved when the lunch aides pointed us out got paddled and had to take out my little fist thing, had my little afro, had my little pick in the back. And the principal, he said, I think you want to take that out. It didn't matter if you would have took it out. Your ass ain't hurt me. He paddled me like, that's what you got. And I walked back. The only thing was the embarrassment was walking back in front of your peers after you got
Yeah.
paddled. That's a wild shit to get paddled in front of like 300 kids. And knowing I really wasn't directly involved, but I got soaked with some milk, so I threw something else, and I got claimed. But that's the type of things that had happened that you don't deal with now. So we didn't directly go back. And I don't even think when I got paddled, I don't think I went home and told nobody. I didn't go back and say, oh, it's a unique situation. We never called my mother mom. I think I started off the trend. We all called her Grace. I started off as the oldest son, calling her Grace. So I never went back and say Grace. Uh, and people always say, y'all so disrespectful for calling y'all mother by her first name. I set that trend. I don't know why that happened, and it did, but whatever. She'll tell you her kids love her, and we have nothing but respect. So whether you call it mommy, ma, or all that, I'm sidetracking now, but I'm still connecting the pieces. So, anyways, I never went back. I never said anything. I got paddled in front of the whole cafeteria. and I was a good student. But I guess the thing, the shit didn't hurt. You ain't do nothing with that little paddle. It didn't hurt, so I never went back and said anything. But now in this day and age, every like best believe back in those days, if we were living in these days, that shit would have been recorded. It would have been viral. It would have been all over the place that would have caused a different reaction. But I felt like I didn't have to tell anything. It ain't hurt me. I didn't. It's crazy. Like it's crazy where these kids and these parents think they all that, but I don't even know how to come up with the correct words because you think about it. I'm like every day. I'm like, listen, you don't have to. No, we don't got to call your mother for this. We got this squared away,
Yeah.
and it's so much of let me run and tell. Like we got a weaker culture, and we producing weaker individuals. Where again, like I said, I got pat on the front of couple hundred people. I ain't thinking about telling. And I was a good kid. Again, like I said, I had good grades, and I could have been like, "Oh, let me call home," but I ate that. And then went back and just shit kept it moving. It's just wild.
I think it's a culture of wanting to be first, and then and it's like the news, and the old adage: if it bleeds, it leads. I don't recall. Like I'm going to go back to when the slogan is 11 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? I don't recall seeing every shooting or every stabbing lead a newscast. But now that just seems to be the way, and it's just like, is that necessary? Do we really want to put that thought in the heads of the collective citizenship that there's always violence out there? Because the impact that it has is that you live in an unsafe community. Now, that's not me saying I want to whitewash that it exists. No, I know it exists. But does it exist to the point where we have to keep ramming it down people's throat, beating them upside the head with it and say, hey, be careful out there? More people die from car accidents that are impacted by violent crime, but yet still we have tens of thousands of people every day. What do they do in the morning? Get in their car, go to work. Get in the car, go get gas. Get in the car, go get something to eat. Get in the car, go grocery shopping. The list is endless. So all I'm trying to say is that there are certain things that we need to be cognizant of and how it's portrayed, and then there's certain things that we need to understand that it's not that bad. You got kids out here, and I don't know what spawned this culture and street fights to the point where no adult is around. Nobody's trying to break up everything, and everybody's either jumping in or they're filming. Didn't exist when we were their age. It just did not exist. We didn't get into fights like that. And if anybody got into fights, it was them. No, no, no. You let them fight. Ain't nobody jumping in this. And that was it. Those things didn't carry on for 10 or 15 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, and that fight was over. That was it. What the, I don't know. Like David said, I don't even know how to phrase it. I don't even know what word to use. I just know that a lot of things that are ongoing currently, they need to stop because it puts these younger kids in disadvantageous situations. In other words, it plants the seed that no matter where they go, no matter what they do, something bad's gonna happen. We didn't have that thought. You go to the Monte Carlo, you go to wherever you were partying at, you never thought anything bad was going to happen, so you didn't plan for it. And I know I talked about contingencies earlier. I'm talking about when I was talking about that, I'm talking about contingencies within the sphere of the event that's going on. We went to Pleasure Dome, teen night, Sunday night. We never, we never, we never cared about um, anything that might go. We had people from Wheatville out there. There were no fights. Michael Falls, a high school, like some people getting together. There were no fights because the culture didn't promote that nonsense. The culture promoted going out, listening to music, having a good time, going back home. That was the culture. It didn't exist. But nowadays we have, this need to film everything that if we think we don't capture, we missed it. And I believe you said this, David. If something is for you, you're not gonna miss it. And I'm a firm believer in that. So when somebody tells me I missed something, nah, I had no intention of going, so I didn't miss it. Why? See one, you see them all. I just some things aren't worth my time. I'm just like, you know what? Okay, maybe next time they come, I heard it was a good thing. Maybe next time I buy a ticket. Maybe next time I go with somebody. But other than that, I'm good.
Mm. And that's probably culture. Somebody had told me it's like, well, what do you know? You don't seem like you do too much down there. Like I don't desire to do too much. Like if it's something I want to go to, I'll do. But other than that, safety first. I rather go to work, make my money, be in the house, and be safe. I'm not gonna be gallivanting at events, especially again. You always have to consider your age. Uh, and when you 55, you ain't trying to be out there with crowds shoulder to shoulder, can't move. That's not the type of environment that you want to be in. And so you adjust and you adapt to the same thing. The same thing with this whole blended thing, whatever. As you get older, there's certain things you have to adapt to and you have to know. And I mentioned this in my promo. Big Bad Wolf, he says, say no to single women, parents. And I said, that some men automatically say, "Oh, certain age, I don't. No, I ain't getting down with that. No, I ain't dealing with no woman I go to. You got to sign permission slips and got to do this and that and do homework and all that. Shit, I don't understand this curriculum, whatever. I'm not getting caught up in that. I know she a nurse. She worked 3 to 11, and I work 7 to 3. Most of my shifts, whatever, and then I'm dealing with her. I got to be responsible for their homework. That shit passed. My kids, they older. They graduated. No, sir. So you don't want to get caught up in that. So you have to think about certain situations. So what you gonna do? But obviously they're gonna be there, and it's what you decide to I ain't gonna say settle for, but decide to say, hey, it's all worth it. This is what I want to be a part of. You have to pick and choose. But you got to know that even with this blended families and um, parenting in 2026, you got to be built for it. You got to
Mhm.
be ready for it. And you got to know that might be some changes and all that. Some people will say, I'm opting out. I don't have to do that. And there, whereas some people, again, we always talk about options. Some people be like, man, this woman into me and my options are limited. So I gotta go this route because I want to have someone. But that route may be like, damn, this shit is overwhelming. I didn't realize this. So Depends on the individual. I'm not telling you to go one way or the other. I know how I'm gonna go, and I know
Hmm.
my tolerance level. Everybody has a different tolerance level. Do they say, "Nah, that's not for me. I got to be out, and I'm good with it." But sometimes people need to be with somebody, and they need that, and they have to have that, and they don't feel complete. When you get to a certain age, you're like, I done been through all of this shit, so I'm fine. I'm fine. If you want some companion at the end of the night, you might have somebody in the same situation. Like, I'm fine, but y'all might be connected together. Hey, come through. I ain't doing nothing. We can watch a movie, drink some wine, do whatever, and chill out. And that's that. You go home, you go your way. Talk to you in a few months, and that's that. So it's a lot of different complexities in all this, people. And understand you ain't got to be locked in one size fit all model.
Indeed, and and it's like you said. You have some men who are they're like me, say no to single mothers. Now, I'm I'm not necessarily brash or outspoken about it, but I am firm because there are certain situations that I don't want to deal with. Yeah, I don't want to have to deal with having to decide who gets to go to a graduation. I don't want to have to deal with no ornery father, if you will, talking about don't speak to my kid like that. I, 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 I don't have a whole lot of gray. I do have a receding hairline. There's a particularly, granted, I'm about 300 some odd pounds. That's about the only thing that reflects my poor health, if you will. But I'm not trying to add to that. I'm not trying to take on no one else's problems. You can call me selfish. I am not bothered by it. I come home, my two cats are doing reasonably well. It's quiet. I got some work to do in the house, but in terms of that blended family, it ain't for me. It ain't for me. Now, that doesn't mean if a woman has children that are in their mid 20s that I might pass her by. No, I'm good with that because I don't have to worry about dealing with them on a day-to-day basis. If she comes to me and she says, I want your opinion on how I should handle this, I'm going to sit and listen objectively and I'll give her my opinion as best I can with the information that I've acquired over the years. I'm not beyond that. There's just a lot of things that I just don't want to be party of. Like I don't go out and get plastered. I don't want to be party to that. I don't hang out with too many people that smoke weed. I don't want to be a party to that. That's it. I'm, I like to believe this about myself. I'm a simple man with complex thoughts and practical application of those thoughts. Now, some people will say, well, what the hell does that mean? That means I take my thoughts and I put them together, and then when the situation comes in, we run the situation through the thoughts, and whatever comes out, that's it. I'm not trying to make anything more complicated than what it already is. So, if Dallas is playing a 4 p.m. game and her family's having a cookout and she wants to introduce me to her family, guess what? I'm not going to meet her family. At least not that day. Why? Because Dallas is playing. That's what I mean by being simple. Some things are just set forward, they're just right there. All I got to do is say, some people will label that selfish. I've been watching football on Sundays going back 40 some odd years. Sundays at 1 o'clock, I'm there. Sundays at 4 o'clock, I'm there. And, now that we have cable, Sundays at 8 o'clock, depending on who's playing, I'm there. But my Sundays are mine. They're they're not for blended activities. Matter of fact, me and my older brother, we pretty much the same way. Don't. Don't call us on Sunday. We're busy watching the game. Now, if you want to blend your cooking expertise, your culinary expertise, your ability to use a phone expertise, and have me deliver some pizza and wings and some chips, we can blend that. I'm all for that. But anything else, I'm not for it. What I want, and I make that joke, tongue in cheek. Everybody's not for a blended family. Why? Because some people will tell you they're going to play favorites with their children. In other words, they're not going to treat your child like their child. And as long as that's communicated to you, the person who has to endure that, then you have two options. One, you can accept it with the knowledge, knowing that they're not necessarily going to harm your child. They're just not going to elevate your child above theirs. Or two, you can walk away. It's only two options you have because that person lets you know what the rules of engagement were. And as long as that occurs in any situation, regardless if it's a blended family, job, a relationship, a partnership, you should never be displeased with it. You should never have a grievance with it because you were given full full disclosure, and that's all anybody should ever want in any situation is full disclosure of what's going to be what and how it's going to be. That's it.
Yeah. So there's no cookie cutter approach in any of this. So when you involve in these type of relationships, again, the bottom line is I always think it should be addressed, and I always talk about knowing your personnel. So whether it's a man entering a situation or a woman situation, when you know the party that you're dealing with, you have to put that out there. Like, he ain't going for that. She ain't going for that. And then you have to try to work around it. Gee, I said I'm listening to the cantankerous black family dynamics, and all I can say is that we will forever be relegated to the permanent underclass in this capitalist environment. This is a losing union, and that probably is, for the most part, true in with the situations. But I think when certain people have certain skills that if they've been schooled on certain things, they may be able to escape it. They may have an exit clause to
Mm-hmm.
get out and say, "Nah, I've been through this battle before. I've been trained on this before. I've been talked about it. I gotta go. That it ain't gonna milk me, or it ain't gonna drain me, or it ain't gonna cause me to be emotionally unstable." But in the cases Gdell say, there's some people that should it leads to other things. There's no secret why on certain situations you can, not even so much on the news, on social media, and you see these violent acts in these type of relationships, whatever, that you say to yourself as a spectator, damn, you couldn't walk away. Damn, you had to do this to her and the kids and all that stuff, and then maybe end up offing yourself. If you felt that bad, just off yourself, or whatever the case is. So depends on the individual, and I think it's always about the messages throughout their life that they've been fed with that may make or break a certain individual, like certain positive vibes that people get that make them go one way or the other way. And that's why it's always positive to be in your kids' ears or whatever with positive stuff. She said, the industry may succeed, but at a scale the group is stuck in the dysfunctional culture. Yeah, and that's true. And that's true. And then some people are stuck. And when you look at it and as a whole, you may say, yeah, we stuck. But for certain people, they may say, shit, I ain't trying to be in that. I ain't trying to be in that group. So they try to get out. So what I and what we try to promote is people to say, hey, I want to be put in a certain position so they can get out. It may not work for everybody, but still you just gotta put out information for people to say, hey, I want other options.
To what Jadea is saying, that's more true than it is anything, and I think that's part of the problem. We get people that have kids and they don't have a plan, and I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying, when you do things haphazardly and the way you move causes ripples in the pool that oppose your your destination, it doesn't help. And then we wonder why we can't coalesce on how kids should be raised. So whether it's a blended family, village concept, or marriage, nobody's in agreement that kids need stability. Because some people tell you, well, I don't need this to raise a child. I only need money. No, you need it all. Kids need it all. Society needs it all. That's why there's this talk now about the high cost of childcare. If we had in place, if we were to put in place means and ways to support the primary building block of society, which is the family, we wouldn't have to worry about blended families. They would be welcome. We'd have a society say, you have a mother and a father there, you have children that are different from different parents, but you want to raise them together. We have housing here for you. We have a community here for you. We have support here for you. Everything that you might think that you might struggle with, we have somebody on tap ready to help you out. But we don't. Which begs the question, where does this country, and I don't care what side of the aisle you stand on, whether you're Democratic, Republic, or Independent, we have people asking, does this country care about families? It's a simple question. Now, the answer may not be so simple, but that question is very simple. And we can tell by the things that we do, by the way that we vote, and by how our tax money is spent.
Listen, gang, we always say all these issues is complex. There's no solution. Well, there may be some solution, but I think the solution is long term. I think the more you talk about something, the more people galvanize and come into it, then you get more ideas and you get more of a vision of how to tackle this. But this particular subject right now, when we speak on um, full time parents, legal strangers, step parenting in 2026, is more of a wake up thing to say, kind of. Know what you're getting into, and know that the grass ain't always greener on the other side, and what always glitter ain't gold. So it's policies and procedures to this, and there's hurt emotions behind this. Especially if you long term and you say, "This is the woman for me," but you know you got other challenges. I guess the bigger thing is find out what your challenges are before you jump into anything. Find out, s- find out the history. Find out what's what, because there's always a backstory to every situation. You got to unlock that backstory. Once you unlock that backstory, you say, "Hmm, interesting. Yeah, I heard that this is her thing. She get with this person, then it be this uproar. The kid's father get out of jail. She go back to them, and he cause chaos. The streets be talking, and if you're in a small place and you hear that shit, run and cover up because you're not gonna be no different. You may think you laying the wood like that, but this story always ends the same way. So, because she got three kids by him, her only kids, and you step in, she's still looking good. You met her somewhere, and you're like, damn, I gotta have that. But there's other factors. There's always other factors to everything. Okay, what's up, Big Shank? What's up, fam? Thanks for joining us. But these are things you got to think about. We just be putting stuff out there. We know none of these conversations going to be complete because they're going to keep coming up, going to keep coming up because all of this shit is connected. And that's the problem. Yeah, I'll be trying to disconnect shit and we still trying to connect it. We connecting the pieces together. So we ain't done by far.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the kind of like life. It keeps going no matter who's not around. These topics, these discussions, they're going to be had with or without you. Now, personally speaking, I would rather have some input into the topic, even though I may not be directly affected or impacted by the topic. Because when when it comes to when it comes down to it, when it comes to brass tacks, there are very few decisions that happen in this country and in the world that at some point in time won't get down to the individual and and his or her way of life. Now, it may be so much as breathing on you that you know it impacts you, and it may be some ways an earthquake of magnitude 7, a tornado of category 4, hurricane of category 4 comes your way, and people are saying, "Well, it's because of this legislation." Well, damn, that's why you need to keep your ear to the ground. This is why you need to have a foot here, a foot there. Hey, I'm not necessarily saying you have to be politically astute, but it helps to be able to pick up the phone and speak to somebody who can get you caught up to stuff. Because I know next weekend I haven't heard one thing about anything. Next week, Tuesday, is our school board election. 4 seats up for grabs. I have not. I, personally speaking, I've only seen two mentions on Facebook, and I'm politically connected on Facebook. I have not had anyone, and I'm a prime voter. I have not had anyone come to my house, knock on my door to sign a petition. Now, I know that every candidate has to gather so many signatures to be eligible for the board, or at least to be eligible to be put on there to vote for it. Now, unless they've changed it over the last year, which I doubt, because it's been that way for years, I'm wondering how serious are we taking these elections? Because these elections have the ability to spend money to direct programming. Just and I've been talking about this. We've been talking about wraparound services. Our local mall, the Fashion Outlets Mall of Niagara Falls, New York, is in some financial turmoil. They're looking to have their loan restructured. Now, I've been saying it and I'll keep saying it. It is a fantastic place to host a lot of things related to education. People, if you're tasked with doing this kind of work, please. Fuck. Fuck. Arrgh. Buffalo lost 3-2.
Oh wow.
Overtime.
Well, thing about life, you got to take steps. I haven't been following hockey, whatever, but they got to this stage. You take L's, you come back next year, and you improve. That's all you can do. Barely seldom that you just. I mean, and to me, I think that's what relationships. You don't go from having nothing to all of a sudden you got this magical marriage. You're gonna go through bumps and roads. You're gonna go through failures. You're gonna have to go through shit. Parenting. There's no perfect guide to that shit. You could have a perfect kid that went on. They went to college, got a full ride, married, living life, and you ain't have to worry about them. And you have certain kids, it's a different process. It's a different thing. So even with stepkids and all that stuff, like they said, it's a journey. It's a marathon. It's a journey. To become a winner, you're gonna go through life. It's a journey. It's a process. So all the Buffalo Sabre fans, I was pulling. I was like, damn, we can get one. Maybe it might be through hockey. But I don't know where the Canadians was at and where the Sabres seemed like. I haven't followed hockey in a while. Sabres seemed like I don't know, like they made progressions to get to this point and they made it this
Oh
far.
no, fantastic. I mean, this is an incredible season, man. It's
It,
I mean, 14 years of not being in the postseason, to get to the second round because Boston gave them a little bit of a problem. Montreal, I think the problem Buffalo has with Montreal, one, they couldn't stay out of the penalty box in some of the earlier games. But Montreal plays a lot like Buffalo, except they're a little bit deeper team. In other words, in hockey, you can roll four lines. Usually, your top two lines are people who score your most goals. Um, Montreal was able to roll three and four lines, especially if they stayed out of the penalty box, and that wears you down. And in a long series like this, it eventually catches up with you. And Buffalo just couldn't play well at home for whatever reason. This postseason, they've been horrible at home. On the road, they're gangsters, but at home, you know, they just couldn't get it done. But all this does right here is it raises the expectations and it plants the seeds for greater success next season. So, you know, when Buffalo hits the ice in October or November of, let's see, I'm sorry, wait a minute. And hockey season is going to start, yeah, in about October, November, around Thanksgiving basketball, Christmas, yeah, somewhere around there. The expectations are going to be through the roof. And, you know, they get to this point in the second round, they're gonna be talking about Stanley Cup, either Stanley Cup or bust. and I'm kind of on the edge of my seat with agreement with that, even though when you look at them, when you look at the Sabres player by player, they don't stand out at you as one of those teams. But they put it together with a collective with Lindy coaching them. I say them boys are primed for another good season, another breakout season. And next year, hey, we may be talking about them in the Eastern Conference Finals, and we may talk about them as the Eastern Conference representative. So this year, it's a mild disappointment. It's a mild setback. But when they started the season, the only thing we were saying is, hey, be competitive, and if possible, get to the postseason. They got to the postseason and some. So well done, Sabres.
You got to take L's before you can win. You don't come out of nowhere. I'm a firm believer that, and even as I glance over at this Spurs and Thunder series, Spurs came out of kind of nowhere. It,
Did they really
it,
though?
conventional wisdom, Thunder just took the lead. Conventional wisdom says that they probably won't win this series, eh, uh, but they got closer. So I equate that to shit life. Sometimes you're gonna get to a certain point. You might take L's. You gotta keep pushing forward. And that's that whole thing with parenting and all of that stuff, whatever. This ain't easy. It ain't no perfect manual. It ain't no script how it's gonna work. Just gotta keep pushing forward. And with that, I'm gonna give her some closing comments. We're gonna get the hell out of here. Because this game, I keep glancing at it's 97-97 with 1 minute and 12 seconds left. I'm going to check it out. So any closing comments on this? Because when we close it out, we know that we're not really close. We're closing out for this time period because we know this shit coming back up. Because
Yeah.
we gotta beat to what's going on.
It 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 it, it I'm gonna take something so basic, so simple, and I'm gonna weave that in here. A bourbon and Coke, gin and tonic. Now they're staples. Timeless drinks doesn't require much to make them. When are we going to get that way with blended families to win? And this is something that we didn't touch on, especially when we're talking about mixing cultures and not just black and white, black and Asian, Caucasian and Hispanic, Hispanic and Asian. When are we going to get to in a time in society where that's commonplace, to where it doesn't raise an eyelash? Nobody thinks anything of it. And they permeate our neighborhoods. And we can be the melting pot that was talked about in the 1950s, 1960s, where we don't have to worry about crime, where we don't have to worry about people being harmed just because they look different, just because they speak a different language, or they speak multiple languages. By the way, which I think is freaking excellent. When are we going to get to where gin and tonics and rum and cokes are as ubiquitous? Or I'm sorry, I got that backwards. Where are we going? When are we going to get to when a blended family is ubiquitous as rum and coke? I can go anywhere in the world and order rum and coke, not a problem. Let's start getting that way with blended families. And as always, growth and understanding the curves in the gray area. Godspeed. See you next time.
All right, folks, and as we always say, we talk about full-time parents, legal strangers, and parenting in 2026. This story don't end right here. It elevates, it cultivates, it it goes on because we live in a world of transition, and now more than any time we have lots of things, especially the financial forefront of what's going on in this world. That when you come together, you got to figure it out. You got to come with a plan. No one has the perfect plan. We're not here as experts to say, "Oh, we got the plan." No, we're here to talk about this shit because y'all want to keep sweeping this shit under the rug and go about it. But we want to challenge you to talk about it. Y'all ain't gonna never come on here. The only way y'all gonna come till we get on the platform, and especially, and I'll say from my hometown in Niagara Falls, that we show up and we get on somebody's platform and we say, or get a place to say, "Come on out. We're gonna talk about all this shit." There's something may hit home on y'all, be like, "Damn, we should have been listening." But that's here nor there. So with that said, everybody enjoy the rest of your week. I know here in Baltimore, tomorrow's going to be warm, then the weather's going to change. And I think that's the same forecast in upstate Western New York, Niagara Falls, Buffalo. Weather's going to be in 90s, then it's going to drop to 60 some for the rest of the week. Be safe, dress accordingly, be prepared, always be well. And with that said, we out, and of course we're approaching Memorial Day weekend. So that always transition. Once Memorial Day weekend transition, that is usually the transition to summer is here. But also leads to other things too, where Melvin may leave his residence, be out and about because the summer months are
Hey, boy.
blooming. So that's something you probably like, what are y'all talking about? You have to stay tuned to lock in. There's some people gonna say, shit, I'm free. It's the summertime. I'm gonna hang out. I'm gonna find me a blended family or do what I gotta do. All right. I'm gonna leave y'all at that note.
Y'all take care.
All right, we out, Gita.
All right.
Thanks for joining us. Be safe, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace.